And so the way that our panel is going to work today is that I will be asking some pre-designed questions of the panelists. They will each have 3 minutes to answer each of the questions. Once we have finished those questions, then I will address the audience and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Again, as Bob said, those of you that are online use the question answer box. And those of you in the auditorium, if you'll just raise your hand, Ira over there will bring you a card so that you can write down your questions and then we'll make sure that they get asked. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and begin. We will start with Ken. And the first question is, how or why does your faith tradition call upon you to respond to the climate crisis?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. As was said, I work with a group called Mitzvah Garden KC, and the word mitzvah, the word mitzvah means commandment, and so on the next slide. And the idea of commandments is that we are commanded by God to do multiple different kinds of tasks to engage with each other in the world. And mitzvah has also come to mean, therefore, because we are commanded by God to do these things, they're by definition good. And at the beginning, in the first book of the Hebrew scriptures or Torah is Bereshit or Genesis. And it refers to the task of humankind to be, it's frequently translated as to tend and to till, but actually the words mean to work and to guard. And so it is our responsibility not only to work with the earth that we've been given by God, but also to guard it and protect it and to take care of it like the precious jewel that it is in all of our lives. And so this is part of what drives us to have the garden itself, which is to feed those who have less access to food in our community. And also I'll be talking more about a specific project about water conservation.
Thank you very much. And Manny, I'll go ahead and give you that question again. How or why does your faith tradition call upon you to respond to the climate crisis?
Well, I guess as Native people, we consider all water sacred. And one of the terms that kind of started happening in Indian country was in 2016 when they were putting the pipeline up in Standing Rock area. And they call it Miniwachoni, meaning water is life. And that is part of our native way. It's a blessing. We call it a blessing that water we use it as a sacred way of prayer. We use fire, we use water, but that's kind of one of the focuses that happened up in North Dakota. And I traveled up there and had a chance to just kind of, be there and really experience all the native tribes. And there was, I don't know, maybe 150, 200 tribes. I could be wrong, but it was really a gathering of how powerful people come together and how prayer and water are incorporated into preserving, just kind of one of our natural ways of life. Just this morning, I kind of smell like smoke. My family wanted to be what we call smudged off. And while we were doing that, we try to get up early in the morning, and we talk about a blessing time, and it's before sunrise. And my ceremonial brother, he was telling me, he said, you go 5 minutes before sunrise. And I've also read this in the Bible, to pray at sunrise, and that's in our native way of life. And while we were doing that, we were starting our prayer, it started to rain. And that rain, we consider that a cleansing, that it cleanses our problems, our troubles. And when you feel that, it's part of a blessing that we call him Creator God. Tikashila Mahiyo Daki. Those are, you pray to Creator God. Though we do the same thing, we pray just like you, but that was just a really powerful blessing when it started to rain, just in that moment.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and joining us virtually, Becca. So how or why does your faith tradition call upon you to respond to the climate crisis?
Thank you, Bennette, for having me here today. And happy Earth Day and good afternoon to all of you. Stewardship of all creation in our world and living in harmony with them is embedded in our Zoroastrian religion and our religious ceremonies. Almost 4,000 years ago, our prophet Zarathustra had said in his teachings, which are also known to the world as his gathas, that out of all of God's creations, mankind is the only one with the highest intelligence and the best thinking mind, and able to become godlike, as we have the potential and ability to live with the highest qualities and values that we associate with God. Just as we consider God to be our creator, our caretaker, our keeper and friend, we, mankind, have to assume that role in this living world towards all other creation, living or non-living in this world, which means we have to responsibly fulfill our duties of giving our love and care to all of Mother Nature and all the life-giving resources in our world. We have several prayers dedicated to elements in nature without which life would not be possible on earth. For example, we have prayers to show our love and reverence for the waters of the world, for fire, for Mother Earth herself, for the sun, for air, for the plants, for animals, for minerals, metals, and resources underground, and also for mankind. These prayers are a constant reminder to us Zoroastrians that we must not pollute or abuse Mother Nature and all its gifts, but rather respect, love, and care for them, and use only as much as we need and give back to it through our care and protection, so Mother Nature thrives and prospers in abundance, not just for us in our lifetime, but also for all the future generations who will live on earth. Hence, to be an environmentalist and help the climate crisis and restore our planet to its healthy, prosperous state is a core duty of a good Zoroastrian. But even if we are not religious and do not consider it to be our religious duty to care for creation, we should all be aware of our good thinking mind and its infinite abilities to make the best choices for our world and ourselves. And everyone who is aware of this gift that we all have cannot possibly choose to just stand there and do nothing. When we all see our world and all its life and resources in such plight, caring for creation and stopping further destruction of our planet is the most sensible and humane thing to do, if not also our religious duty. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for those words. Okay, and now we're going to go to Keith. And Keith, can you tell us how or why does your faith tradition call upon you to respond to this climate crisis?
Thank you, Bennette, and thank you to all of those who are with us this afternoon. Again, my name is Keith Mundy, and I'm a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And our faith teaches us both ecologically and theologically that we are called to be mindful of how we treat the earth. These are two ways that we understand both our place and our role. The health and wholeness of human community is intertwined with the health and wholeness of the earth in which we live. We need to understand that relationship. Now, we believe that our faith seeks understanding. It's important to remember that we are caretakers of what God has entrusted to us. And that is a sacred trust, a humbling responsibility. our role as caretakers and earth keepers is something that we take very seriously. Now, there still are times when we don't live up to our own expectations, perhaps because of pride or arrogance, or maybe a lack of knowledge or commitment. There are times that we fall short in our caring of creation. And it's at those times that we're invited to look at ourselves and to think about, how do we begin to change? How do we have forgiveness for the things that we have done, perhaps, or maybe for the things that we have left undone? And we believe that through this forgiveness that comes through Jesus Christ, that we have the ability to help restore God's earth. We also see that this work is part of our reconciliation, a repairing of our relationship with the earth. Centuries and centuries, generations and generations have been living here, and at times done well and at times not done well. But what we are trying to do is restore that relationship so that both present and future generations can live here together. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Okay, and now for our last panelist, Keith. How would you, or how or why does your faith tradition call upon you to address this climate crisis?
Thank you. In Genesis, Presbyterians are taught that God made humans stewards and caretakers of God's good green earth, to serve and conserve, to preserve and protect, to tend and till, to be responsible and respectful. This is my understanding of dominion, not to exploit or extract, but to love what God loves, which is all of creation. In 1990, the Presbyterian Church adopted by a 97% majority a policy report called Restoring Creation for Ecology and Justice. It called Presbyterians to focus on caring for creation as a central concern, to be incorporated into the life and mission of the church at every level. 5 years later, a number of Presbyterians, impatient to see the policy enacted more vigorously and widely, founded Presbyterians for Earth Care, a national grassroots organization to support people of faith working toward environmental wholeness with social justice. Over the years, PEC has helped the church fulfill its current environmental policies, create new environmental policies and practices, and equip, educate, and inspire Presbyterians about earth care ministry. In a 1980 document entitled Peacemaking, the Believer's Calling, the Presbyterian Church affirmed that peace-giving in a broken and insecure world is central to the message of the gospel. In that document, people of faith were urged to engage in peacemaking, not as a peripheral activity, but as an integral part of their congregational life and mission. In 2008, this commitment to peacemaking was revised to include making peace with the earth. Thus, it became a commitment to peacemaking and earthkeeping. In 2006, the Presbyterian Church adopted a resolution on climate change, which stated, "The church strongly urges all Presbyterians to immediately make a bold witness by aspiring to live carbon neutral lives, and calls upon all Presbyterians to take this seriously, to pray, asking for God's forgiveness and guidance, to study the issue, to calculate their carbon emissions, to educate others, and to use less energy, striving to make their lives carbon neutral." On April 22nd, 1990, on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, Dr. Bob Benelli, the founding pastor of Village Church, preached a sermon entitled Restoring God's Creation. He proclaimed, "The gospel's good news of redemption applies to the earth as well as the earthling." At the time, 1990, these bold prophetic words were telling us what we needed to hear then and now. Over the years, very few pastors have been as direct, blunt, and unequivocal about environmental concerns. Despite these pronouncements, most Presbyterians, both pastors and people, have been slow to believe and slow to respond to the existential threat of climate change, but not everyone. In 2017, Village Church did an environmental survey of its congregation. 85% of respondents agreed that people would be attracted to a church that incorporates earth care in its mission and ministry. I call that progress.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we are going to move on to our second question. And this time we're going to be finding out exactly what types of things that they are working on. So we'll start with you, Ken. What are concrete ways you are working with members of your own faith or other faiths to help reverse the climate change?
So and this is where the slide, next one. This is, I'll take a moment on this slide because it really echoes what my fellow panelists have talked about. This is a specific verse from the Torah that says, that talks about, it says, and when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them to the poor and the stranger. I am Hashem, your God, from Leviticus 23:22. And so the Mitzvah Garden specifically is focused on feeding the hungry in our community, those who need food. And we're grateful to the Temple Congregation B'nai Yehuda for being able to use their land for this purpose. And in the next slide, we raise the question of, this is what the garden looks like from above. And the question is this word matar. We call our water conservation system Project Matar. And matar is the Hebrew word that means a nourishing rain, as opposed to the word geshem, which is the word that's used in the story of the flood, where a geshem can be a torrential rain, a flooding kind of rain, as opposed to matar being more of a nourishing rain. And and in some places, like the next, if you click, in some places, like in rainforests, nourishing rain comes regularly. But unfortunately, because of climate change, nourishing rain does not come as regularly or predictably in Kansas City as it once did. And this is true in many places where we'll have times of abundant rainfall, and then we'll have times of 2 or 3 weeks of zero rain. And so Project Matar was a way to harvest rainwater by having a pole barn that's 30 feet by 40 feet, where every inch of rain that falls collects 1,000 gallons of water. And in the next slide, we collect that water in these wire totes. Each one holds 300 gallons. And we have 22 of these. And then we can store 6,600 gallons of water. And in the next slide, we deliver the water with Israeli-made drip irrigation technology so that we're conserving literally every drop of water to help us grow food. So this is a specific example that the Jewish community and specifically the Mitzvah Garden of how we have adapted to the changing environment that we live in order to take care of the world and take care of other people around us.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next panelist, Manny. What are concrete ways that you are working with members of your own faith or other faiths to help reverse climate change?
Well, I think as Native people, we've already had, we've had that built into our traditional way of life, that, that we preserve our water, we preserve our land. That's our natural resources are very important to us. And I think of my tribe, back on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer, one of the ones they were fighting was the coal. The coal emission, polluting our air, our water. That's one way that, our tribe has done that. I know other tribes have, tried to preserve their fishing rights, their natural way of life. I think ricing is another one with the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe. There's various parts of, I guess, our natural, what was given to us. We always say given to us because we borrow from what we call what was given to us by Creator God, Mahio Tekashila. We always consider that a blessing. Every time we use something, we give thanks. If we're using something living, to survive, that is part of our way to pray for that. Before we go out and hunt, I know my wife is Bennette. Her dad went out one time just to hunt elk, and he said that they prayed for that. You pray for the elk. It's a gift to you. Everything is a gift. We're just borrowers. We borrow things that are given to us through, the environment. Everything that is part of our land. And I can think of us growing up on Lame Deer. We didn't have much, but that didn't matter to us. We didn't have, a lot of running water. I remember carrying water. We used to use coal. That's probably something we shouldn't have been doing, but we used coal. We chopped wood, we hunt, we fished. And, you think about just kind of on the other side of the road was all the kids that were with the BIA, and they had everything. We thought everything given to them, but we didn't know any better. But yet we could go out and hunt, we could go out and fish, we could go out and even, corn, we did that, the vegetables, that was all part of our way of living. But I think one of the big, back in my day, one of the big pushes was to preserve our air and water quality. And we just did not want that to infringe on our reservation, which was just right next to a big coal power plant. But that's kind of, what we do as part of our native way of life. We think that's very important. It's a gift, and everything we receive, whether it's food or clean water, clean air, that's still a gift from Creator God.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we will go to Becca. And what are the concrete ways you are working with members of your faith or other faiths to help reverse climate change?
Here in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I live, my Zoroastrian community is a member of an organization called Faith Communities Go Green. I myself am the co-leader of one of this organization's working groups called Education/Lifestyles Working Group. Through our working group, we educate and inspire individuals in various faith communities to reduce their carbon footprint individually and also collectively as a congregation. We do this in various fun and constructive ways, like showing movies that educate us about climate crisis, care for creation, and then have discussion sessions following the movie. For example, we had a free movie screening this past January of a movie called Kiss the Ground. And after the movie, our guest speakers, all experts in regenerative farming and agricultural practices, spoke with the audience and answered their questions and gave tips on how we, the public, can support regenerative farming practices that are so environmentally friendly and useful by enrolling ourselves in farmers' co-ops, purchasing organic produce grown with regenerative methods, etc. Our working group also organizes webinars and workshops. For example, we had webinars on reducing the use of single-use plastics, how to start a green team at your house of worship, etc. Our upcoming webinar on 16th May is going to be on sacred grounds, in which our speakers will share their experiences in maintaining beautiful landscaping in the grounds surrounding their places of worship, while also using simple, practical ways to do this sustainably, being mindful of our native biodiversity, as well as ways some of the land could be used to help the neighboring communities with fresh produce and fruits by using some of their sacred ground space for community gardening and orchards. Other ways in which our working group creates awareness of the climate crisis and inspires people to do something about it is by participating in eco-challenges. For example, right now in April, which is Earth Month, there is a global Earth Month Eco Challenge going on, in which organizations form their own teams to compete in a friendly way with one another in helping to reduce CO2, plastics, prevent the depletion of several other resources from nature, etc., by actually signing up for daily or one-time actions. Every time we complete an action, we get points, and cumulatively, our team's points keep rising. At the end of the month, the Eco Challenge website will give us a report of our impact of all our actions in this Eco Challenge on climate and the environment, individually and collectively as a team, and where we ranked out of the hundreds of teams in the world who had participated. We also offer book clubs to gather people who are interested in reading books on care for creation and have discussions on those books. At the national level, our Zoroastrian community is involved in similar ways with the organizations existing in their states. Some of our places of worship have already started going green and reducing the carbon footprint of their buildings by installing solar panels and taking some other steps to cut down their carbon footprint, and also taking steps to maintain their sacred grounds more sustainably. Personally, in my life, we have had solar panels on our house since quite a few years, and we recycle and compost practically everything that would otherwise be trashed. And we devote our time as volunteers to promote the work to combat climate crisis, to educate, create awareness, and inspire our friends, neighbors, and the larger Cincinnati community by joining hands with organizations like Faith Communities Go Green and furthering and empowering its work in our community. Even as I speak right now, my husband is volunteering at the Cincinnati Earth Day Festival at a park here, where I would have been too if I were not here with you all just now. But I chose to be here to speak at this webinar with all of you because this is very important work you all are doing, and I wanted to support it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Becca. Okay, and so now we are going to move on to Keith. And Keith, can you tell me what are concrete ways that you are working with members of your own faith or other faiths to help reverse climate change?
Yes, for about the last 6 years, I've been working with the Lutherans Restoring Creation team of the Central States Synod, which is Kansas and Missouri, of the ELCA. And this group focuses on caring for creation, environmental issues, and climate solutions. We work specifically with the 170 plus ministries that we have in Kansas and Missouri to accompany them as they begin to address these kinds of issues. Now, more specifically, I work with the Earth Charter initiative. The Earth Charter is a document that was developed about the year 2000, and in 2019, our denomination endorsed the Earth Charter. And so we have begun to work with this framework that has a vision of, as a global movement, to be able to educate and network with people to address sustainability of the planet. Now, in my work, in terms of leading an initiative, we have developed a grant proposal and received funding to begin doing some work with ministries within the geographic area. We are primarily at this point working with congregations in the Manhattan Junction City area, in Jefferson City, in Kansas City, and in St. Louis. And these efforts focus on using community organizing approaches to be able to advocate, educate, and take action around environmental issues. And so we've been training leaders in those cities, and we've been accompanying leaders as their congregations pursue specific tasks in their areas. Now, one example would be a congregation in Olathe near here who took part of their property and turned that into an orchard. And so they're using that as a way to raise fruit, but also to help restore part of the property that they have for their church. We've also developed some resources for educating people in congregations, and those are available on a website entitled Lutherans Embracing the Earth Charter. And we are also accompanying more congregations as we look forward to 2022.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Jerry, what are concrete ways that you are working with members of your own faith or other faiths to help reverse climate change?
I am the convener of Village Church's Environmental Action Committee. Over the years, we have promoted ongoing recycling efforts from early on and offered environmental education opportunities on Sunday mornings and evenings, classes, usually in collaboration with the Sustainable Sanctuary Coalition of KC and Earth Keepers of Heartland Presbyterian. Another thing we do is curate earth care and climate change information to be displayed on our Environmental Action Bulletin Board and posted on our Environmental Action webpage. I like to say that this bulletin board is a colorful, eye-catching smorgasbord of ideas, issues, actions, and events. Other actions have included raising funds to retrofit 207 solar panels on Village Church's daycare building, raising funds to retrofit occupancy sensors in classrooms, copy rooms, bathrooms, and hallways in the church to turn off the lights, overseeing a pollinator garden monarch way station on its grounds, hosting electric car expos, organizing a ban the bottle campaign to discourage the use of plastic water bottles, lobby the pastoral staff to preach and teach about making a bold witness to slow, stop, and reverse climate change, encourage folks to engage in earth advocacy, responding to the issues in the public sphere. More recently, we commissioned a yard banner that proclaims climate change matters. Justice for the earth is justice for all. And we put this out on our front lawn next to Mission Road. Something else we did this spring was post action steps on our website that could be taken during Earth Month and beyond. If you ask me later during the Q&A, I'll recite them.
Okay. Are you done there? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Real quick, we are about to ask our final question of our panelists, but since we've had more individuals joining us, I do want to let you know that we will have the opportunity for all of you to ask questions of the panel members as soon as we've finished this next round of questions. And if you raise your hand, we have a gentleman out there, Ira, a member of our council. He is passing out cards so that you can write down any questions you have for those of you that are in person. And those of you that are online, you can use the question and answer button and send your questions in that way. Okay, so we are going to move on to our last question. And we will start again with Ken. What are your hopes for the future or next steps for you in responding to the climate crisis?
Well, I think my first hope for the future is what's happening right now, which is hearing people from different faiths and cultures talking about all the same kinds of ideas about conservation, about recycling, about having orchards and gardens that not only raise food, but also take care of the earth. So I think this is the future here. And what we have done and will continue to do at Mitzvah Garden KC is to bring volunteers of every age and from every faith and culture and tradition to come together, because not only do we learn by didactic lecture and webinar, but also I think it's really important to learn through action. And when people actually come and participate and see the water capture and delivery system, when they see solar panels being used to store energy, when they see the idea of an off-grid system, and they're literally working with their own hands to operate it and make it work, I think it has a really powerful impact on children of all ages, right? So whether, 3-year-olds and 80-year-olds that come and participate. And my hope is that we not only expand that within ourselves, but also we're working on something that we refer to as faith-inspired gardeners and stewards, or FIGS. The FIGS group is an effort to bring together all of these different faith-inspired groups to talk about what we're doing in the form of climate response, and to really coordinate our efforts and hopefully amplify those efforts toward the future.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Manny, what are your hopes for the future or next steps for you in responding to the climate crisis?
Well, it's, I'm thinking, just as kind of some little notes I had, was that we have a really beautiful, our native people have a really beautiful connection to the land, to everything, water, and that we consider ourselves stewards of that, to protect that. We, just like the water, I mentioned the issue up in North Dakota, we fought for that clean water. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's very beautiful. I mean, I look at the Missouri River down here, and compared to up there, it looks like mud. I mean, it looks like coffee. But if you ever go up there, it was just ice cold, and to walk up to it and just see the beauty of that water. And as Native people, we've always tried to protect our natural resources. We just, that was what we considered part of our way of life. And we want to pass that on to our young people. It's important that they know it, and a lot of times we see our young people, they're just stuck to their phones, and they won't know how to, plant corn. They won't know how to, why is it important to protect our water resources? Why is it important to learn to live off the land? That's something we need to instill in our young people. And I see that with my little grandkids, that, they get caught up and they don't want to learn. And I tell them words in our Cheyenne, and I say it's important to learn. Just like this morning when we went out to pray, I said, you're supposed to know your Indian name. Mine is Wolf Bennette, means white bear. So when I get ready to go on, to move on, that when I get ready to pass on, the person that speaks for me will say my name. And that is my connection to our, what we call Creator God. And I think that's part of the way when we are resources, we need to learn how to connect spiritually. Everything we feel has a spirit. We have a lot of sacred land that we cherish. There's one beautiful one up in Spearfish, South Dakota, and it's called Bear Butte. If you ever get a chance to go up there, you fast. You're up there for 4 days, 3 nights, no water, no food, and all you do is pray. And it's a beautiful way of life. But when we pray, we don't pray for ourselves. We pray for others. And I pray, sometimes when I pray, I say, help us appreciate what life has given us, and that spiritual connection to, all of the natural resources we have. We pray that we'll always have those. We don't want to lose water, clean water. We don't want to have air that we, just like smoke or pollution. We don't want that with our young ones, our grandkids. And that's how I'd like to pass, something on to my kids and young ones.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and next we have Becca. What are your hopes for the future or next steps for you in responding to the climate crisis? Somehow she's muted.
Becca, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. We inspire as many youth in our community to learn, to educate themselves about climate crisis and how we are running out of time so fast and how crucial it is for everyone, people of all ages, from every faith and economical background, for all of us to come together, to act, to work on combating climate crisis and restoring Mother Earth to her pristine self again. I have a lot of hope for the future of our planet. In the last few years, I have seen more and more people showing interest in learning about the health of our planet, about climate crisis, and showing interest in helping in some way or the other. People of all faith backgrounds are willing to come together and work happily and peacefully to restore the health of our planet, because more and more of us are realizing that we are, after all, the children of just one God, and we all have to live in just one home forever, our planet, Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Keith. What are your hopes for the future or next steps for you in responding to the climate crisis?
Beginning this May, we are going to be offering some scholarships to congregations, some grant scholarships, so that they may begin to take on some new initiatives in 2022. We are also organizing or helping to organize an event that will be in Olathe, Kansas this June, in which we are building on a Synod event of 300 people to do some education about the environment. Key speaker will be Cynthia Molavita from Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, and we'll have 9 workshops on different aspects of caring for creation and climate solutions. We also, as part of that, have proposed a resolution that encourages congregations and households in Kansas and Missouri to strive to reduce their energy consumption in their congregation and their home by 10% per year over the next 3 years. As we continue this work, we are again accompanying congregations and working with a specific ministry that we have developed called Caring for Creation Coaching, which are people who are coaches, have been trained to help people to discern what direction they're going and how they can get there most effectively. Those are some of the ways that we're working as we look at 2022.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and we will move on here to Jerry. Can you please tell us, what are your hopes for the future or your next steps in responding to the climate crisis?
Among the religions of the world, there is a great uniformity of opinion and common purpose when it comes to protecting the environment and the natural world. Religion fosters reverence, respect, and responsibility. With such unified opinion among religions about the need to care for the earth, some have suggested that environmentalism could be the great unifying cause of our generation. This is a hope. After all my years of activism, I confess I am struggling to keep hope alive. The most recent IPCC report has been labeled Code Red for Humanity. The report is a litany of broken climate promises. It is a file of shame cataloging the empty pledges that put us firmly on track toward an unlivable world. Climate change is not just another issue among other issues. It is the issue. It is now, it is here, it is rapidly getting worse. It is the overarching moral, social, theological, economic, environmental, and national security issue of our age. Dr. Jim Antal, a UCC pastor, predicted, if every third sermon isn't about climate change now, then within 15 years, every sermon will be about grief. On a more positive note, I'd like to mention something about the Yale Climate Change Survey regarding attitudes about climate change. There are 6 Americans, according to this survey. Alarmed, 33%, concerned, 25%, cautious, 17%, disengaged, 5%, 10% is doubtful, and dismissive or denial is 9%. The good news is that over the last 5 years, there's been a significant change in the distribution of the 6 Americas. In the September 2021 report, there was more Americans who are alarmed about climate change than ever before. At 33%, it is the first time the alarm group has outnumbered the other groups. Between 2017 and 2021, the alarm group almost doubled. That's from 18% to 33%. Even more encouraging, last year, there was a 9% increase between March and September when the poll was finished. Overall, Americans are becoming more worried about global warming, more engaged with the issue, more supportive of climate solutions. The 3 largest groups are 75% of the population, the groups that are most likely to be motivated. To give you a visual, since I don't have PowerPoint or slides, this shows the 6 Americas with the 33% of the alarmed on this side. This shows the trend over the last 5 years. Again, this being the most alarmed. You can see how it is, what the trends are over the last 5 years. Maybe during the questioning Q&A afterwards, I might talk about something called drawdown, which gives me hope. And maybe some comments by Dr. Catherine Cahill, who also gives me hope.
Wonderful.
Some of you know John Fish Kerman. He has a motto: it is never too late to make things better than they otherwise will be. I have a credo. When we think of loving our neighbors and practicing the golden rule, let us act realizing that we all live upwind and upstream from someone else, both in time and place. We all live upwind and upstream from someone else, both in time and place. My hope and prayer is that people will overcome voter suppression and vote. I'm gonna hold that. Yeah. My hope is that people will vote climate for our children, vote climate for the next 7 generations, vote climate for future generations of all God's creatures. As earth keepers, let us practice the 10 R's. Have you ever heard of the 10 R's? Resist, refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, recycle, renew, restore, rethink, and rejoice. Rejoice in the earth and the fullness thereof. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all of our panelists for your wonderful answers to our prepared questions. And now we're going to move to our audience. And I do have a couple quick questions here that I'm going to take, and then I'm going to go over to Bob so that we can get some questions from our online viewers. This first question is not addressed to any specific person, so I'm just going to leave it up to you panel members if you just want to raise your hand if one of you wants to take on this question. The question is, do you think it is important to unite all religions in their mission to be better to the earth and beings? Go ahead, Ken.
Yes.
Great answer.
Yes.
Again, I think that we're all of us, as was said, we, as Becca said, we all have, from different perspectives, but all have some sense of the unity of a singular God, that we all come from. And the name we use are different. The way we conceptualize it is different. And we all absolutely stand on one earth. And so I think that using that, as was said, as a way of unifying from our different faiths, our different cultures, our different languages to come together, I think that we have a great opportunity. So again, the answer is an emphatic yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think all of us would agree, the more we work together, the more we can make happen. Okay.
Like I said, this could be the great unifying cause of our generation.
Yes, it definitely should be. Okay, I have a specific question for Becca, and that is there a website with information that is available for the upcoming May 16th webinar that can be shared?
Yes, absolutely. And if I put it in the chat, would you be able to share it with the audience, Bob?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, yes. You have to, it's a free event, but you have to register in order to attend. So you get your link to join. But thank you for your interest, and I'll send you the link soon.
Okay, and I have another really quick question that is for Ken. Are there tours available for the Mitzvah Garden?
Sure. So because today is Shabbat, the garden is open, as we say, 24/6. Our traditional work day is Sunday mornings, and so that's when most people come to volunteer between 8 a.m. and noon. But people are really welcome to contact me, and if there's a time that would work out for you or your group to come during either on a Sunday or during weekdays, we would be happy to show you what we're doing, and hopefully to inspire you to bring it to your own community in small ways or big ways, because again, it's all of us working together that are going to restore our home to the highest quality it can be. So, and I don't know if my email is available through the website, but it's kensonnenscheinmd@gmail.com.
Okay, great. I'm going to check real quick with our online participants to see if there are any questions there and have Bob help us with those.
Yes, I've got a question from Ron Mentor. This is a general question to everybody. What do I say to my church leaders to encourage them to work on climate issues?
Who would like to take that?
I'll take that
Okay,
one. Bennette.
give that to Keith.
So our congregation is in the process of addressing that very issue, Bob. And what we're trying to do is find out, first by listening, what are some of the concerns and the interests of people in the congregation and the community? And how do we then begin to find what some of the unifying factors and unifying volunteers, what they might begin to focus on? I think people realize that it's an issue, but sometimes it's not a very high priority. And what we want to try to show is that there is both an awareness as well as interest in taking action. And that means we're going to have to organize ourselves to begin to do that.
Great, wonderful answer. Okay, Bob, do you have another one for us? Okay, well, while he's looking.
Yes,
Oh, there we go.
yes, I got another one here.
Okay, good.
And this question is directed to Manny. Question is, what native earth traditions would you like to see other churches adopt?
That's a tough one. Oh, boy. Without salting any particular denomination, I would not kidding you. I'm trying to think of something. I'm just kind of drawing a blank on it, but that's a good point. I guess for us, everything is in nature. When we had our churches, and our churches were never in buildings, they were outside. And maybe to encourage you as spiritual people is to go outside and pray. And you don't have to do it in the morning. You can do it anytime you want. But I do it, when I get up on Saturday mornings, I have some free time. I'm not rushing around trying to get ready for work. What I think we just need to do is pray more. And you are all praying people. We are too. But I usually like to get up, and then, like I said, I mentioned this before, it's in the Bible before sunrise. And one of my my brother up in Montana, he said, pray 5 minutes before the sunrise. Creator God will hear that has a little window for you. It's beautiful to get up in the morning. And my question to him, well, how do I know it's sunrise? And he said, do you have a phone, Google? I said, I do. So sometimes I come over to Kansas City, and we have a way we put, you don't have to do that, but we put a white sheet over them, and I'm facing east. And I have burn a little something, and we use cedar. And the cedar is the life. It's the longest living tree that stays green year round. And we use that for cleansing. I'm not saying use that, but get up in the morning. And that's the beautiful thing. Us old people, because I'm old now, but us old people, we can do that. We can teach our young people to pray. And it's hard to teach them because they're so involved with their phones. That's all they want to do is play games. And how do we stop? I mean, not stop it, but how do we get them to appreciate it? And I deal that with my little grandkids. I'm trying to teach them some of our cultural ways. And that's what they're so involved with that. But maybe as all spiritual people, maybe we can get together and try to encourage, and you have grandkids, you have kids. How can you help foster that? And it's hard to do. It really is. In our native way of life, it is too. We see, on my reservation, we have a lot of methamphetamines and drugs. It's taken over our communities. It's really sad. When I go home to Northern Cheyenne to see all the meth heads there. But I look at myself as a spiritual person. How can I help that? And I don't know how. But maybe as communities, all over our churches, our people, we can do that together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I have some questions here. We'll go ahead and take a couple of these and then go back to our online community. So one of these questions is there a group I can attend either online or in person to talk about environmental actions being taken monthly and what we can do individually? Do any of you have any programs that people can get involved with? Go ahead, Keith.
Yes, so I mentioned that I'm involved with Lutherans Restoring Creation here in Kansas and Missouri, but we have a national organization that has 25 groups from around the country, different pieces of geography. And every month there is a telephone call around a particular issue or a particular theme that has to do with a climate solution or environmental issue. Sometimes that's a speaker, sometimes it's what's being done in a particular initiative in some part of the country. And that's an open phone call to anyone who might want to participate.
Okay, wonderful. And how would they go about finding that?
Lutheransrestoringcreation.org.
Okay, we'll get that. All right, great. Go ahead.
I would suggest the Sustainable Sanctuary Coalition of Greater Kansas City. It meets monthly, sometimes more recently twice monthly. It's been online, but there is opportunity for a conversation after the program is over, responding to a certain topic or theme.
Great, thank you. Did anyone else have one thing you wanted to share? Okay, all right, we're going to go ahead and go on to another question. Why do you think it has taken so many decades or centuries for many faith traditions to get on board with caring for the earth, and how can we accelerate faith communities responding? That's a good question.
I'll take a moment and give one.
Oh, sorry, I can't see her. Go ahead, Becca.
Let her go.
Oh, Becca, you're on mute.
Becca, you're muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak briefly to this, to address what you just said, that we, in my religion, which is almost 4,000 years old, caring for the environment and all that Mother Nature gifts us throughout our lifetime was embedded in our prophets' teachings. It's not a new thing for us at all. It's right from the birth of our religion that the concept of being a steward of Mother Nature is at the core of our religion. So for us, it's not anything new. And it's actually a pretty astonishing thing when a Zoroastrian finds another Zoroastrian doing something that is, against the environment or speaks up against acting for climate crisis. So for us, it's like a no-brainer to participate in environmental activities and to take care of Mother Nature and to keep our earth as clean and pure as possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say one of my observations is that very often conversations about caring for the environment start to focus on actions, but seldom do they begin to talk about where the resources will come from to be able to undertake those actions. And consequently, some of the decisions that are made become unfunded mandates.
Yep.
And consequently, there's no way for those actions to be implemented. And there's not a way within the system for people to be held accountable to the outcomes of the actions that people want to happen.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And I could see how that would get in the way of groups moving forward because they end up with all these losses. So definitely, for my own recommendation is to talk to other people. There's other communities out there like you've just heard today, and I'm sure there are even way more than what we've been able to present to you today, but find help. Like there are people that can help you, guide you, and get you started if that's what you want to do, and encourage others to do the same. Okay, Bob, do you have any other questions for us in the online community?
Yes, I do. I have a question directed to Keith. The Lutherans seem to have a lot of organization in place to address climate issues. Is there any initiative to package those out to other denominations or cross-denominational education on that?
Thank you, Bob. We do a lot of collaborative work through our office in Washington with other denominations such as Presbyterians for Earth Care, Climate Justice, and a number of other organizations. And we do make our resources available at no cost to any congregation or any group that would like to use them. But what we find is simply making resources available is not necessarily what it takes to get things moving. It takes a commitment by people to want to actually use the resources and implement it. Sometimes that takes some accompaniment. And that's the area that we're starting to focus on, is how can we broaden and deepen our leadership skills to accompany others, both within and outside our denomination, to take action in this area.
Great.
Talking about leadership, there can be grassroots leadership in some instances or top-down leadership. And it seems like more often than not, the leadership comes from the grassroots up rather than from the top down. And I think that's a deficit for almost all, at least Protestant denominations.
Okay, that actually touches on another question that we had. So I'm just going to pull this one up forward. Are the climate solution actions and other environmental actions in and by your faith tradition typically initiated by the members or by the leaders who represent and serve them? So real quickly, can each of you share whether or not your particular movement started at a grassroots level with the congregation, or was it your leadership that made that happen? Go ahead, Ken.
Absolutely grassroots. That I think that in part because really climate response is going to be each of us as individuals that recognize what part we can do, and where we take, again, the example of how the garden got started is most faith communities have some sort of physical property, and around that physical property is grass. And so literally it took a grassroots movement to say, well, instead of grass, how about making it into a food producing farm or orchard? And so everyone has their own vision of their particular area. So I think the answer, as Jerry said, is going to be literally grassroots.
Okay, and I'm sure you would also agree, Manny.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And Becca, we know that you guys, that is what you do all of the time. So I'm sure to you, it would also be grassroots. Is that correct?
I'm not sure she heard.
I'm not sure she heard me either.
I'm just looking at her.
Did you ask me something? Because
Yeah,
it was
so-
very,
Sorry about that. Yeah, we were just saying, so far here, it looks to be that most of these changes and initiatives are initiated on a grassroots level rather than from a top-down approach within congregations. And I was just asking if that's true for you as well.
yes, it's always even in our community, it's always at grassroots level. Like somebody makes a beginning and then a few more people join, but it's usually at the membership level. And then they start inspiring the leaders to, give their time and finances and attention to the projects. But most of our green movements locally and around the country were started by one or two members and picked up from there.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Keith.
I would say grassroots is a start, but I think there's a critical point in that evolution that you begin to need some engagement, some involvement, some support from the larger part of the organization or from the infrastructure. About 2 years ago, we started what is called a sustainability table, which pulls all the players, so to speak, the grassroots movements, as well as the people who are working globally, as well as the people who work in outdoor ministry and campus ministry, a whole bunch of different areas together, so that they can begin to have conversation and coordinate and begin to strategize together about where do we go next.
Okay, great. All right.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I would also add that, at least in our church, the grassroots is trying to convince the leadership that more people, especially young people, would be attracted to a church that incorporated earth care in its mission and ministry. And that's a message that we keep trying to push.
Okay, great. All right, Bob, do you have any other online questions before I take these last few here?
I do not have any questions, but I did want to follow up on a previous question, asking Becca to share her site. We have sent that out to the virtual audience on chat. For those of you in the room, go to fcgg.org. That's Faith Communities Go Green, fcgg.org, and click on their events calendars, and you'll find the listing of all of Becca's events there. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have just a couple more things. And I'm pretty sure these questions right here are about the Mitzvah Garden. So one is, where is it located? And as well, where is the tile wall you showed located?
So the first question, I'm sorry. So the Mitzvah Garden KC is located on the grounds of the Temple Congregation B'nai Yehuda in South Overland Park at 12320 Knoll, right across from Island Park. But if you put in Google Maps Mitzvah Garden KC, then you'll find it that way. And the second question about the wall.
Yes, where is it located?
It's on the grounds, and it was created by a fresco artist in Kansas City whose name is Joy Bear, and we remain very grateful to Joy for having created the fresco with some volunteers. So, and all are welcome to come see that.
Great. Okay, so this is the last question, and it starts with a tidbit of information. I read the other day that the U.S. military emits as much greenhouse gases as the combined output of 73 countries. This was very disheartening. What can be done about this? I'm not sure that we are we are the panel to be able to solve the military's climate crisis. So if nobody else wants to take it, I'm just going to say that when we're talking about government and military, regardless of whether it's this particular situation or any situation, that's what your congressmen are for. That is what your senators and representatives, it is their job to convey what, yes, and you can vote climate, but it is their job to listen to your voices and to then tailor policy around that. So the only way that something that, national is going to change is if we change the hearts and the minds of the people who are making the laws and running our country. So, like you said, vote climate, Talk to your representatives, talks to your senators. That's true for anything, whether you're talking about nationally, but you also have local representatives and stuff too. And nothing will truly change unless the policies and the governance and everything else changes along with it. So I definitely encourage all of you to be active, share what it is that you want for your community, share things that you don't like that's happening in the world around us with those people who have the ability to forward that into actual change. Okay?
I've been
Yes.
told that you can sign petitions, you can send emails, but the most effective form of communication other than talking to someone is to write a written letter,
Okay.
handwritten letter.
All right. So there you go. Letter writing campaigns. Put that on your calendar to-do list. And, but seriously, it is really the only way that you're going to make broad sweeping changes is to do it through the governments that need to make the changes. So please always do that and always talk to others and always promote others. Yes. Oh, Becca, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in our group, Faith Communities Go Green, I only talked about my own working group because I lead that and all the things we do with that group. But there are two other groups, and one of them is called Advocacy. And that group just focuses on what you just said. So they educate people about the wrong happenings and, or, the bills that are going to be passed that are bad for the environment, and how every person can do something. You can always do something instead of just sitting and doing nothing. So that's our policy that, even if we don't succeed, at least we know that we tried before we know that we didn't succeed. But if more and more people join the movement, we sign these petitions, we try to help the bills into becoming laws, get them passed in the elections, things will keep getting better. But people like you and me, ordinary people in the community, have to think that I can make a difference. And it's not just one little me can do nothing. One little me can do a lot. So that's the policy we use, and we inspire people to join us in that advocacy group. And even though I'm with my working group, we're all actively involved with one another. And we do help make changes in our laws in Ohio that we're against the environment. We are constantly working to improve those laws.
Great. Thank you for that input.
And hopefully that's the whole idea, is that it is each of our faith traditions and cultures that gives us the strength to speak truth to power, and gives us the strength to stand up when we feel very small, but to realize that through the strength we derive from our faith, that we can move mountains.
Yes, very well said.
Oh,
Go ahead.
To that there's an expression, if we each do a little, we can all do a lot. And if we all do a lot, we can do a lot more. But there's only so much individuals can do. You have to join. You get in groups. You have to change laws. You have to get political. You have to go from changing light bulbs to changing laws. Group practices.
Yes, exactly. And so as we wrap up here today, I would like to, on the behalf of the Greater Kansas City Interfaith Council, I would like to thank all of you for spending some of your afternoon with us so that you could find out more about what's happening in and around our world, our country, and what you might want to be interested in getting involved in, or maybe it motivated you to do more of what you're already doing, which is also wonderful. We appreciate you coming, and we also want to thank all of our panelists for giving us their time and sharing with us what they're doing and what they want to do for the future. We appreciate it, and thank you very much.